All right, guys, before we begin, what you'll need for this live class is a pen and paper. We're going to do a live mock writing test. So please have a pen and paper handy because I'm going to take you through the process of hopefully successfully doing a live mock writing test for the OET. So more specifically, what we're going to do is, first of all, we need to think about the method that we're going to use. The method for the writing test, the E2 language method, should be like this. First thing you do on test day during the reading time is read the task and fully understand the task, because the task should dictate everything you write in your letter. The task will tell you who you're writing to, the profession of the recipient, the reason why you're writing for a definitive diagnosis, for example, or for additional home care help or something like that. The type of letter, is it discharge, referral, transfer, etc. And the task will also tell you, either explicitly or implicitly, whether the person you're writing to knows the patient or not. All of this information in the task is absolutely critical for how you go about writing your letter. So after you've read the task, number 2, you need to interpret and select relevant case notes. Well, you need to interpret them all because you need to know what they are, but selection should only be case notes that are relevant to the task. And number 3, you'll then need to, when you begin your writing, you'll have 40 minutes, you need to organize and transform those case notes into well-written sentences, in well-written paragraphs, and overall a well-written letter. Now, this method is the same method for all professions. It doesn't matter if you're a dentist, doctor, nurse, or veterinarian. This is the same method. This method applies to everybody because it's the same criteria for all professions as well. So how the nurses are graded is the same as how the doctors are graded, which is the same as how the physiotherapists are graded, for example. So today's plan is this. We're going to read a task. We're going to fully understand the task. Then we're going to interpret, select, and plan our letter. I'm just going to give you 3 minutes to do that. In the actual OET test, you'll get 5 minutes reading time, but today, just to make things a little bit more streamlined and quicker, number 2, we'll just do that in 3 minutes. Then number 3, I want you to write the body of a letter. So that's why you need the pen and paper. So we're not going to worry about the address or the niceties or anything like that. We're just going to focus on those central paragraphs, and I'll give you 20 minutes to do that. Before, the last thing we'll do is I'll show you a sample or model letter that I've written, and I'm sure you can pick the eyes out of it. That will be fine. So let's firstly read the task. Okay, imagine it's test day, and the invigilator has said to you, okay, everybody, you can open your test book. And so you open that page, and your heart's pounding because you're terrified, and you read this. Now, this letter that we're about to write, this is particularly relevant for nurses and doctors, but if you're a physio or whoever, just try and do it as well. Some of the case notes might be a little bit tricky to understand, but let's see. So this task is interesting. It's sort of, well, okay. I'm not going to go into it yet. I'm just going to put you under the pressure. It's test day, so you should know what to do now. Now I'm going to give you 3 minutes reading time. So no writing. What I want you to do in this 3 minutes reading time is interpret the case notes, understand the case notes. Then I want you to think about selecting which case notes are relevant to the task. And I also want you, in your mind, because remember you can't use your pen in the 5 minutes reading time, is I want you to plan your letter. How will you structure, how will you organize the case notes? What's the introductory paragraph going to look like? What's the first paragraph going to look like? Okay, I want you to do these 3 things during the reading time. Now, if you're in the Zoom webinar, you may need to go off onto YouTube Live if the case notes or look blurry, if there's some sort of issue with viewing this properly, because we're going to fit some text onto the screen here. So your 3 minutes to interpret, select, and plan begins now. All right, so as I said before, on test day, you actually get 5 minutes to read the case notes, but in which time you need to use effectively. You need to interpret them, so you need to read them, you need to understand what they're saying. Then you need to make decisions about whether they're relevant or not. Okay, so you're basically picking the ones you're going to put into your letter. And the third thing you want to do in the reading time is think about how you organize your letter. How are you going to structure your letter? What is the most important information? Which information will be prioritized? Which information does the recipient need to know? Which information does the recipient already know if the recipient already knows the patient, for example? Lots of decisions here, everything guided by the task, everything directed towards the task. Now we're going to move on to 20 minutes of writing time. I don't want you to write the entire letter starting from the address and the dear Dr. So-and-so, read, da, 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 da. Forget all that stuff. I just want you to focus on the body paragraphs. I want you to start with your introductory paragraph, followed by paragraph 1, paragraph 2, possibly paragraph 3, and then a request, okay? Again, you'll be using relevant case notes. I want it to be well written, grammatical. I want each paragraph, basically what you're doing here is you're telling a story to the recipient. So I want it to flow nicely from beginning to end, okay? Here's the way that you should do this when you're writing it. Put yourself in the shoes of the recipient. If you were the recipient, if you were the home care agency or the home care nurse, what would you want to know, and in what order would you want to know it? How would you want the letter to be organized so that you very quickly and easily can understand what's going on with Robert Murray, for example? Cool, let's do this. Yeah, okay. Hopefully you know by now how you will organize your writing. Hopefully you know what the introduction will look like. Hopefully you know what the paragraph 1, paragraph 2, possibly paragraph 3, and the request will look like. Let's do 20 minutes of writing, only writing the body of the letter. You have 20 minutes starting now. If you're in Zoom, by the way, and the screen's blurry, please go to YouTube, type in OET, you will see the live stream. All right, that's halfway through. You should have definitely written your introduction, probably your paragraph 1, and by now you should be into maybe your paragraph 2 and possibly even your request. Okay, that's 10 minutes. Of course, we're doing this very quickly, so you have another 10 minutes to go. So please keep writing. I'm sure you're doing very well. Actually, before we do that, just let me check that everything's okay in here. Good. Yep, fine. All right, let's keep going. All right, that's 20 minutes. Hopefully you've written your introduction, your body paragraphs, and perhaps even the request. What we're going to do now is I'm just going to pick out a couple of YouTube Live, and I want you to think about what's wrong with these. Here we go. The patient is a known the patient is known for I have to change this grammatically. Maybe I'll just read it ungrammatically. So there's a problem with grammar, but grammar aside, think about what's wrong with this. The patient is known hypertensive and suffering from cellulitis of lower extremities. What's wrong with this? If we're writing to a home care nurse agency, we need to think about changing our language to be more appropriate. And therefore, we're going to have to reduce the medical jargon, and we're going to have to write this in a clearer way, okay? So that's one issue, is think about who your audience is, change the words so they're more appropriate for your audience. Okay. What about this one? I'm writing to introduce Mr. Murray into your care for ongoing management of his condition. Is that really the reason for our writing? Are we really writing for ongoing management of his condition, or are we writing for him to receive home care help? Okay, so that introduction, the reason for writing was wrong. So be careful with that one. What else have we got? Okay, I can't think of any more. Okay, let's have a look at these case notes and let's have a think about associations between these case notes. So in the reading time, what you should be doing is, first of all, you interpret the case notes. Okay, yes, you understand what they all mean. You understand what they all mean. Then when you're thinking about, okay, then you think about selection. Okay, relevant, relevant, irrelevant, irrelevant, relevant, relevant, etc. Then you need to think about organization or planning. So let's have a look at the patient history here. And let's think about which of these case notes can be put together into a sentence. So bilateral lower extremity edema cellulitis. So let's just call this, let's put a star next to this one, okay? So which ones would go with this problem here, this medical issue? Hypertension, in some ways related. Venous stasis, definitely. Renal insufficiency, well, high cholesterol and obesity, possibly. But let's look at possibly that could be a star as well. All these three could be combined together. In fact, with the obesity, you could then think about joining in the hypertension and the kidney issues as well. So you need to think about ways that you can thread the case notes together into a story. Then for this one, alert and oriented self-directing, this would be something different altogether. So let's call this, let's do a cross for this one. So alert and oriented self-directing, ambulates and transfers independently. This is they're kind of related case notes, right? Skin intact. Well, this one, in fact, let's put a star, because this one would go back to the issue with the skin here, the cellulitis, right? Skin intact. So you can see how you might join ones like this, and you might join case notes like this. So this is part of the thinking process in the reading time, because they're not going to be all grouped together, but you need to think, okay, he's got issues with his legs. So that one, that one, that one, that one, and that one will all come together into some sort of sentence or paragraph discussing issues with his legs. Yeah. All right, cool. Let's go through now. I'm going to show you my model letter. There may be some issues with this. I wrote it very quickly and I am not a medical professional, so please do correct me if I have included something irrelevant or incorrect, or if I misinterpreted. So I start with today's date. I wrote Colbrow Home Care Agency, 27 Park Street, Vermont. Cool. Now there's no person involved here, so I just wrote the name of the agency. Because I didn't know who the recipient was, I used this phrase here, to whom it may concern. To whom it may concern. This is a very nice formal way of saying, dear whoever, dear somebody, to whom it may concern. Regarding Robert Murray, age 72, so that's good, that's good. Now, and I've got yours sincerely and doctor down here, but let's take a closer look at this section here, because this is what I wanted you to write. So let me read this to you. I would like to refer Robert Murray into your care who requires your ongoing home care. Yeah, or ongoing home assistance might be better. So it's kind of broad, it's brief, but it introduces the reason for writing. Now what I've done here is because this home care agency does not know Robert Murray, I'm now going to talk about his medical history because that will be relevant. But if this home care agency already knows Robert Murray, the medical history all of a sudden becomes irrelevant, right? See how that works? See how if you're writing to somebody who knows the patient, you're going to include different information. So, because I'm writing to the home care agency for the first time regarding Robert, I would say in terms of medical history, so I've put a little clause here telling the examiner what this paragraph is about, or the reader what this paragraph is about. Robert experiences edema cellulitis and venous in both his legs. So instead of saying bilateral extremities, I just said both his legs. So I've transformed some of that jargon into simple language there. I don't know if I could have made this any simpler, maybe not. This is a result of his obesity. Okay, so now I'm linking up, I've talked about his leg issue, now I'm talking about his obesity issue. Despite being only 5'8", he currently weighs 162 kilograms. In addition, he also experiences high cholesterol and hypertension, for which he is trying to eat healthier, including a diet lower in sodium. So what I've done here is I've linked in obesity, obviously his weight. I've linked in the high cholesterol case note, the hypertension case note, the fact that he's trying to eat healthier, the fact that his diet is low in sodium. So I've put all of those together into one sentence. So I've linked them. He also has issues with his kidneys. Okay, so that was the renal issues there, but I've just put that in simple language. Health issues and obesity aside, Robert is alert and oriented and manages to walk independently with a walker. His skin is intact and his chewing and appetite are fine, though he is incontinent of both bowel and bladder at times. So I've put this separate to the medical history, even though some of it is the medical history, but it's more like here's his main medical issues, right? And here is the secondary issues here. And they're weaved together quite nicely. Now I move to the third paragraph, because remember Robert had a checkup on the 18th of the 6th, which was yesterday, I believe, or today, yesterday. In a checkup visit with me yesterday, I reminded him to carry his personal emergency response system, which works fine. It was clear, however, that Robert requires about 6 hours per week of home care in the form of household chores and washing his legs. Now, I didn't mention that he's able to drive a car and he's able to attend his medical checkups himself, or that he is able to do this, this, and this, and left that all out, and all I said is, he needs help with this. Don't worry about the other stuff. I won't even mention it. He needs 6 hours of household chores, help, and you could phrase this another way. Some people were phrasing it nicely on YouTube Live saying hygiene, but I just said washing his legs. Cool. Thank you for your ongoing management of Robert. If you require any further information, please do not hesitate to contact me. Now, the big takeaway from this, and I don't want to mislead you, almost all of those case notes that I showed you were relevant. Okay, so I've included almost all of the case notes into this letter. The reason I did that is because it's hard to show lots of irrelevant case notes on the computer screen. It's just too much, it's too busy. So my word of warning to you is that on test day, there probably will be more irrelevant case notes to ignore, okay? And the task, the case notes might be a little bit more complex than this. This was a pretty simple one, okay? This would be, yeah, I don't think this is definitely not as difficult as it is in the actual OET, but it's a very good practice. I hope you found my model letter okay. Again, I'm not a medical professional. I had to Google some of those things, admittedly. Cool, guys, that's all. If you need any help with your OET, check out this website, www.e2language.com. You can sign up to our OET preparation course. It's for nurses and doctors, nurses and medicine. We are an OET premium preparation provider, so you can trust us. We know what we're talking about.